Alright, it will be time for the version 2.2 performance test. This is something that I do with every new version of the game, kind of a tradition that I like to keep up. Now, originally I planned to do the test with Android 15, which is scheduled to arrive on my device in about 2.5 weeks, so it's pretty close. However, I have seen a lot of players say that they started to have issues with 2.2, although I have to admit I've seen mixed overall feedback. Some say that performance did get better, some say performance got worse. I actually believe that I believe both are true. I believe both statements are true. In my case, I believe the FPS on this device became better overall, but we will see that once I start up the test. Now, I think you guys already know the applications that I use. We will be monitoring the temperature, the frequencies, the load, all the important things. And also I say important because with Android 15 I should be able to get the angle option, and that should in theory improve performance. I really want to test out the difference. Will angle make any difference on the game? That's, I think, one of the main reasons why I want Android 15 on this device, just to be able to use angle, and hopefully that will solve all the OpenGL issues that we experience in the game. Now, speaking of cooling, I will use a dual cooling setup. Now this is the Black Shark cooler that I bought a month ago. This is a very nice cooler, works really well, and I will combine it with my ice block. Now the reason why I'm doing that, I want to eliminate any potential throttling, although getting the 8th Gen 2 to throttle is actually quite the achievement. That thing doesn't throttle at all, and it likes to run warm, so I want to keep the temperatures down as much as I can. And this little cooler combined with the ice block is actually a fantastic solution. Now, the ice block, I used the ice block for years. I wanted to see if those coolers are actually valid, and they are. Well, the one that I use at least seems to be doing the job really well. And let me just show you all the options. Now you do have a bunch of options on the cooler. I usually keep it on the maximum performance, on maximum cooling, and you can actually hear the fan spin up when you change the options. This is controlled by Bluetooth, so very easy to set up, very overall easy to use. And for this device so far, this little cooler has been doing a very good job, I must say. And just let me show you, yeah, it's already starting to, yeah, there it is, already starting to condense, and you do get ice particles on the back with ease. It can drop temperatures up to -15, -20, which is actually pretty solid. And I mean, that's pretty much one of the very few ways to be able to cool down internals of a phone with a glass back. You need to have a very cold surface touching the back panel, and this does get the job done. Of course, with the ice block it's double cooling, so that's going to be, and here you can actually see the temperature currently -11, which will gradually keep dropping as the cooler keeps working. Attaching it is actually pretty simple, although unfortunately with my device the camera bump is a little bit in the way. I can't really have it exactly on top of the processor, which if you do have these coolers, you should try to get the cooler on top of the CPU, around that general area, so that you can maximize cooling, which I'm well aware of, but on this device it is a little bit difficult to do because of those camera bumps. As you can see, this is pretty much as far as I can go, at least with this particular cooler, but it still gets the job. And the processor is over here on top. It still does reach the heat pipe and does cool the heat pipe that's in the middle basically. But yeah, does get the job done, and with the ice block there is going to be absolutely no throttling whatsoever, because I really want to see the pure game performance. That way I can figure out what can be improved, and based on that I can basically give Kuro the feedback that they would need in order to further optimize the game. And I can tell you, so far I did send a lot of feedback. I can tell that some of the core issues that the game had for months have been fixed, and I will talk about that when I jump in the game. So this is my current clumsy setup. The cooler, you can see the lights below, and the ice block to the left. So yeah, this thing is surrounded by ice pretty much. Now let me connect my controller. Obviously I will be playing with a controller so that you guys can see the screen. After all, I don't want my fingers to be in the way. Usually I would record the internal screen, obviously to make it more enjoyable. However, my recorder started to really mess up everything, and the recorder started not to mess up only this game, but it messes up pretty much every other game I play. The recorder that I use is 5 years old now, and the new software, new Android version doesn't really like it, and that gives me issues regarding stability. It does affect FPS a lot, so I will need to find a new recorder that doesn't do that, basically. That's the unfortunate thing that comes along with new software. You get new software, and old stuff that didn't get updated for years starts to give problems, which is what I'm experiencing now. Even though I'm on Android 14, it seems that the latest patch updates that I had, security updates and stuff like that, messed up something with the recorder that started to crash often. Not only the app crashes, but it crashes the system UI, which is annoying, very annoying. But here we are. And let me click connect, and now the first thing that I also encountered, for some reason the Bluetooth has a little conflict with my controller. Conflict with the controller and conflict with the cooler, which is pretty funny. It spins in the same direction, even though I'm not touching the controller. It spins in the same direction as the fan is spinning. So I don't know what kind of magic is going on there in the background, but I will have to disconnect the cooler from Bluetooth. And the good thing is you don't need to connect it through Bluetooth to work to get the cooling effect. You also have buttons on the cooler itself, so I already pressed those, so now they will go with its default. But yeah, we'll have to reboot the game, and maybe even reboot the phone, so that the controller doesn't mess up. Let me just quickly reboot the game. Now, the game used to have a severe issue with heating on the very start. Basically on the login screen, the game would smoke the CPU cores, all 8 of them, up to 95 degrees Celsius. That has been fixed. I personally reported that problem to Kuro in the last update. It's fixed now. That's a huge deal, because a lot of devices used to overheat on the very start because the CPU cores were floored to 100%. Now the processor is actually fairly cool. Didn't go over 47 on the loading, which is amazing. That's a fantastic step in the right direction, and I'm very glad that they fixed that particular issue. Meanwhile, the Bluetooth issue that I have seems to be still there. Well, let me see. Okay, seems to be back to normal now. And also one of the things that I see that they kind of fixed, the loading, the frame starter, the lag caused by loading. Now in this particular area, in the past, the FPS used to drop severely, primarily because the game would load assets from the storage into the RAM, and the lack of stuff in RAM basically meant that it would stutter and wait for the stuff to load into the RAM. Now, with this update, that seems to be mostly smoothened out. However, it is still not as smooth as it should be. It's still the loading. The game loads way too many things, even now, and the fact that it's loading so much will cause lag. This is not a hardware problem, this is practically how the software handles stuff. The game doesn't load all the necessary items, all the necessary resources into the RAM immediately. It loads them occasionally, which does reduce the RAM need, but it increases the overall storage use, and it does cause lag and stutter in a different way. So if you do experience that lag in that particular area, that's because the game just loads stuff and just waits for the stuff to be loaded in. Now, as for the overall FPS and stability and frame rate, I can see improvement in the overall GPU frequency stability. Now again, the game doesn't run in high resolution. I mean, 1080p, 720p, that's normal resolution. It does use FSR and does upscale, but when it comes to this game being GPU heavy, it's really not GPU heavy. It uses about 50% of full capacity on the 8th Gen 2 and GPU. So if we had a 120 FPS option, this phone would be able to run the game at 120 FPS and it wouldn't be a big deal. It would handle that just fine. So graphically speaking, yeah, this game is not graphically demanding. The main problem, what I talked about in the past, is the API. Now, I think I do see, from my perspective here, I do see an improvement in FPS. I think they have improved the overall multi-threading seems to be a little bit improved, because I feel like there is a lot less CPU bottleneck now, which means that more cores are actually working. And again, if that's the case, then I would say that's a step in the right direction. Now, this is from my experience. Again, I must not ignore the report from all players that have said that FPS dropped and that the stability dropped. I said this before, I didn't originally plan to buy a new device, but I feel like I need to have a variety of devices. I have a 8 Gen 2, which is my main device now. I plan to buy a tablet with a 8 Elite chip, which should be coming up this or next week actually, this or next month actually. And I will have a mid-range device. I already have one, a tablet with a Snapdragon 870. I want to basically do tests on 3 different devices, basically current generation, last generation, and a mid-range, so that I have a full picture of all the potential performance related issues, because I do believe that the game runs poorly on a lot of devices out there. I mean, I would still say it still runs in OpenGL, so the fact that it is in OpenGL alone means that problems will be there and performance related issues will be present. And until they go and allow us to switch to Vulkan, the performance issues will be there. However, from the current 30 minutes of me playing so far, in my case, it seems that the performance did get better. Now, what could be the cause of the performance of the game diminishing? I usually reinstall the game completely. If you update the game over, like if you have the update, if you have the game now and you just update to the new version, that can cause lag and that can cause issues with corrupted files and stuff like that. I always recommend, if you do update the game, if there's a huge update of course, a fresh installation, and that does fix a lot of issues. Not only for this game, but that pretty much solves the issues for a lot of games nowadays. Why is that the case? Well, I don't know, it's just how code works. In 2025, it's not something that we can unfortunately affect. That's down to the developers. Not all games do that, but a big portion of the games just know to run very poorly or after a big update, but do run very well after a complete reinstallation. Now, if, and I think this is also the case, a lot of players seem to have issues after installing. Uh, that could be problematic because that means that there is something within the game that got broken. Now, I don't know in what way Kuro does optimize the game. Do they do it per chip basis, or are they doing it universally? If they're doing it universally, then there should be no problem. If they're doing it on a chip per chip basis, that can be problematic. Usually games that do optimization per chip basis know to forget a couple of chips or just drop support along the way. Exynos chips, for example, Exynos chips are not bad by any means. The current and last generation of Exynos chips, the flagships at least, they have very good GPUs. Unfortunately, those GPUs are unable to be utilized because those chips don't have OpenGL API anymore. They don't have that anymore. They only have Vulkan and Angle. And because this game doesn't have Vulkan support, you can imagine what problems it would cause to Exynos devices. Of course, they can technically break something specific for specific GPUs for specific chips. That can also be the case. Personally, I only have Snapdragon devices. I prefer Snapdragon. I have the best GPUs, and I probably will have to think about buying other devices with other chips at one point in order to be able to test the game out on a bunch of different hardware. Which is, I have to admit, a expensive hobby, especially with the current prices. They're expensive. The tablet that I plan to buy, I don't know how much that will cost, but I definitely will have to test out a wide variety of devices to have a full picture of how the game works on different hardware. But I would say, and I'm almost 90% sure about that, the main problem is the API. The main problem is definitely OpenGL on this game. It also does create a lot of issues with CPU cores. I mean, throttling is also a thing. Now again, this particular chip that I have likes to run warm. I don't know what magic they done 2 years ago to make this chip run this warm and run this good without throttling, but it's honestly impressive, and I'm glad that I bought this generation because it will last me for a long time. Now, performance-wise, I mean, I think you can see the FPS there. Yeah, it's visible. I have to say that this time the FPS is actually really good. Now, is it perfect? No, far from it. I would say with proper Vulkan support, flatline 60 FPS and lag completely gone, if done properly, which is a good thing. So far, from my perspective at least, we do see a improvement. However, me saying that I see improvement on my device feels a bit weird, because again, I take your feedback seriously, and I'm trying to figure out, okay, if the game started to run well for me on a 8th Gen 2, why did the game stop running well for other chips or other devices? You know, that's one thing I'm trying to figure out. Potential issues and potential reasons why that's the case. Also, I have noticed the game seems less blurry now. I feel like they have increased the total resolution. Obviously, it's not going to be as sharp as custom resolution from the custom configuration file. And I will test the game out with interpolation, with frame generation later, and I will also do a little test with my custom configuration file with I think 4K. I set the resolution to 4K or something like that. Just out of curiosity, I usually do that in these tests. But overall, the game does look. I would say the game does look better. I feel like they have improved the overall textures. Seems nicer to look at, really. Less overall blurriness. The game seems sharper. I would actually say, for the most part, I don't really think that I need to use the custom configuration file that often now, because I would say the game does look better now than it used to. It looks much better, actually. Now, could be the case that they've done the optimization part only for specific chips, which if they did that, I would be disappointed, because I want all the possible chips to get good performance, not just one or two. It would be pretty selfish for me to want only one chip to run well. I want everyone to get the same experience. So of course, mid-range will also get mid-range experience. You will have limitations depending on what hardware you have. That's a unavoidable thing. But on a flagship, you should be getting flagship level experience. That's what I'm saying. And honestly, the FPS is decent. The CPU is 50%. Sometimes it does spike to 70, which isn't a big deal. But for the most part, it uses around 50% of total CPU, which is not a lot. It's actually fairly balanced, I would say. And total GPU load, as I mentioned before, is hovering above 60-50 on 475. Maximum frequency is 719, so far from using full GPU. It's using about 50% of the devices on GPU currently. But yeah, the FPS is actually really solid now. You do see some occasional stutters here and there. And that's again down to the game, that's down to the software, that's not hardware related, that's game related. But this does look much better than before. Undeniable, at least from what I see here. If I were to compare this test with the previous test and the test before, I think I would come to the same conclusion that the overall performance is getting better. The temperatures are also, I would say, a little bit lower. No, obviously the temperatures, I expect them to be lower. There's literal ice below the device, and a fan pretty much actively cooling it. But I did the same test before, and even with the ice block and with the cooler, I wasn't really able to do much on the thermals, at least on this game. Now that seems to be better, I would say. So I would say that they done something regarding the multi-thread support. Obviously, there will be frame drops from OpenGL. Unfortunately, that's unavoidable. Again, as I mentioned, until we go Vulkan, you will see frame drops, frame dips, occasional slowdowns and stuff like that. It's much better now than before, that's for sure. But they will still be there. And of course, I am not forgetting what you guys told me, that you lost performance. So they definitely broke something. I think they broke something for sure. They fixed something, but at the same time they also broke something. And the good thing with these developers is that they listen. And you should definitely send feedback regarding performance on your device. You should definitely send feedback if you lost performance, because they fix stuff. And if they listen to me, and I can confirm that they did listen to what I had to what I told them with the loading screen. I was very surprised. Personally, I was a little bit skeptical. I didn't expect to see that improved. I did not expect to see the loading screen actually, not burn my CPU. When I was very happy when I saw that it just loaded quickly without turning the CPU into reactor 4. That's a huge improvement that is important, and I think everyone will benefit from that. Now this is the new area. I wanted to see how the new area performed. I did record on this device in the story video, and I used the custom configuration file. It was for the most part very smooth. Now this area actually runs really damn good. 60 FPS. It's flatlining at 60 FPS. Temperatures are down, and this is a very big area, by the way. There's a lot of stuff going on here as well. The FPS is extremely smooth. I have to say, Kuro, good job on this new area. It looks good. It looks good, runs well. And yeah, we are flatlining at 60 FPS here. Now I'll go do the boss battle. But when it comes to performance, so far, from my experience, and I say my experience because I'm, again, aware that a lot of players don't get this experience, and I want everyone to get the best possible experience. So what they've done so far, I would say it's a step in the right direction. I see improvement. Performance seems better overall. The game seems to look nicer overall, and good job on that. But we still have a core problem, and I think they're aware of it. I've been told, I think you guys heard, but the upcoming, what was it called again? Pre-download for mobile that's in the work that will be available in the next update. One of you guys actually told me 2 months ago or a month ago that that's in the works, and the same guy told me that Vulkan is also in the works. Now I said one thing: if the guy was telling the truth, then we will see the pre-download. And I said that a month ago. We are seeing a pre-download coming next month. So what that guy said is the truth, and I 100% believe what that guy said me. What that guy told me. I 100% believe that. So we will see Vulkan in this game. I'm fairly sure of it. Might happen in 2.4, 2.5, 2.6, but it will happen. And I think all of my worries that I had in the past are pretty much going to be going away, because I think this game is going to actually do the right thing. I think Kuro is doing the right thing, and personally, I'm pretty happy with the game so far. Again, it has problems. I am not denying the problems. I pointed the problems out. I will keep pointing out the problems until they're fixed. Not because, obviously because I care about the game. I mean, let's be real here. If we didn't care about the game, we wouldn't be giving feedback. Is that true? I think we can all agree on that. I care about the game. I like the game, so I give my feedback. I help in the area where I can help. I do what I know where I can help. If I didn't care about the game, I wouldn't be even doing a test. As I said with Genshin, and with Honkai, I used to care about these games, but now not so much. Yeah, I'm glad I started to play Kuro games. They saved me. Let me be real. Kuro showed me true quality, and Kuro showed me true what it means to be a true developer, a developer true to their words. And With Wuthering Waves, this game is rated 4.9, by the way, a near perfect score on the Play Store. That should tell you a lot. People are very happy with the game, and honestly, it's a good game. So, the latest story, for example, is just amazing. I loved it. I wish I could replay it, the whole thing. But yeah, back to the performance test. The new area just runs perfectly fine. I have literally zero complaints about the new area. It's flatlining 60 FPS on OpenGL, mind you. This is getting good FPS on a very old, outdated API. To be clear, outdated old API, and you're getting fantastic FPS right here on this map. Let's do the boss battle. Obviously, the FPS will be much better, and the overall stability and the total heat output will be much lower. The stability will be higher, better. The heat output will be much lower if it were in Vulkan. That's one thing that's unavoidable, but they definitely are working on performance. So I was worried that they will abandon the Android version of the game because of the whole Apple Meet and stuff that they done a week or two ago. But I think Kuro will not, I think Kuro will keep treating everyone equally as they should. They will treat all platforms equally as they should. I don't think that they'll play favorites. After what I've seen after this test, I think they will not play favorites. Of course, that's a open topic. They can change anytime. They can definitely change anytime. And when they do that, I will point it out. But as of now, I would say it's not a problem. And in the boss battle, the FPS is still really solid. 60 FPS flatlining through the boss battle. I expected to see big frame dips as I have seen last time and the previous time, but that seems to be gone for the most part. Again, on this device at least, I know we don't have all the same devices. There's a lot of different devices out there, and if you actually, you know what, if you do have issues, do tell me in the comments down below, because your feedback means a lot to me, so I can send that feedback directly to the developers. I usually do that with every survey, with every update, and I'm going on the feedback application here that the game has, and I do write a text, a wall of text quite often with all sorts of problems and issues that do get fixed, by the way. So if you do have a problem with the performance, or if something got worse, do tell me in the comments down below. Again, my intention is to help. I just want to help, basically. Now, one thing that I wanted to test out is frame generation, frame interpolation, which I do have available on this device. However, I've read on the news page in the game that frame generation might not work. Now, initially I thought that that's only for PC, because the interpolation done on a phone here, for example, is a bit different. It's not in the game, but using externally through a application that you have built in. I think they have disabled that globally. At least the frame generation doesn't seem to work. On PC, I don't have that. I don't use that on PC. I don't need to use it on PC. But it seems that frame generation or interpolation is disabled currently for Wuthering Waves. Now, I could be something with my application that's wrong. Obviously, I'm not saying that my app is perfect. Okay, well, it's not my application. The built-in application that I have in this device. I don't know if a update on the app messed it up. I don't know, but it should be 60, 70, 80 FPS with interpolation on, but it shows 60. Now, the game does run smooth, so I was a little bit confused there. It's enabled. However, I don't see any... I don't see it work. It's very easy to spot interpolation or frame generation. You get good FPS, but you can feel the delay, you can feel the input lag, and the overall image quality does drop just a little bit. But that's just what frame generation does. However, I don't feel any delay, and the image quality is perfect. So I'm fairly sure that it does not work at the moment. It used to work. I did the same test last time in last month and the previous month, and I was able to get some good FPS. Basically, it's pretty funny to see frame generation just artificially bumping up your FPS. And I call them fake FPS because it is fake FPS, but it was still pretty funny to get the game smooth, but at the same time it felt a bit weird. I was never a fan of, personally I'm not a fan of frame interpolation, frame generation. I feel like that's something that is, high-end hardware should not rely on interpolation and the frame generation just to get playable FPS. I am not against it as a technology because it can breathe life into older hardware to get good FPS with older hardware, but you should not have to quite literally rely on it on high-end top-tier hardware in order to get a good FPS. And that's one thing that is also kind of a problem with modern gaming, because all of games require you to have frame generation on, which ruins the image quality, and honestly it's pretty much destroying optimization as we know it. I mean, 540p gaming in 2025 is not a meme, it's actually a reality. 540p upscale to 1080p. It's quite literally what's going on nowadays. But yeah, interpolation unfortunately doesn't work at the moment. Actually, you know what? Let me just reboot this device. I will do that real quick. Let me go and reboot. Maybe that's the problem. And maybe the reboot will solve it. Well, after rebooting, I can tell you right away, it still doesn't kick in. So I suspect that the interpolation feature and the frame generation feature is disabled at the moment in the game. I know I read something about them having issues with that on the news page of the game, so if it's disabled because it gives issues, that's fine. I'm not going to complain too much about that. After all, I'm not a fan of frame generation, but it's important to know if it works or if it doesn't work, or maybe it just doesn't work on my current, on my type of frame generation. Maybe it works on some other, but I mean the FPS was already good enough, so not a big deal, I would say. Could be a big deal in the future maybe, but now I don't see much of a problem. Okay, so that was the frame interpolation. Yeah, it's not kicking. It's still 60. Still does go with the game settings. Okay. I mean, if anything, we now know that it doesn't really work, at least on this device. Let me try 40 FPS. Yeah, it's now 40 FPS. Yep, it doesn't really bump it up, and it feels like 40 FPS. Okay, let's go back to 60. So that leaves us to the custom configuration file. Now this is my favorite part. Getting the game to look good with a custom configuration file is actually very simple to do. I'll attempt to make a kind of a guide, the easiest possible, the easiest codes and stuff like that anyone can pretty much learn and put into the game manually, so that you can pretty much get a overall better experience. And speaking of better experience, I have loaded in the custom configuration files. I changed the engine ini and the game, not the game user ini, but the user device profile ini, that one. And you'll see, I used to have only high resolution option. Now the game looks much better. That's sharp, okay. I think the resolution is set to 2. Now 0 is native, 1 is 720p, 2 is practically double 1080p, which is 2160p, so this should technically be rendering in 4K based on how Unreal Engine counts the scale up factors in the engine ini. If you put 2, it should be double 1080p, which is 4K, 2160p to be more precise. And yeah, I need to go into settings and set from high to ultra high. There we go, unlock the new option. Everything else is also maxed out, and here we can see that, yeah, still smooth. Now the GPU usage, it's going up. You will see the GPU usage go up, and pretty much with this current with current options and with the current configuration file, you basically see the lack of proper API support. Basically, the only reason why it lags now is because the game does not use the GPU in areas where it should be using the GPU, and this is what Vulkan will solve. Yes, it's possible for on a mobile device to get 4K resolution and to get 60 FPS. These things are not slow anymore. These things are fast. But you know, the game looks very good. You know, Genshin could quite literally never look this good on mobile device, even if they try. This looks so good. I think with the recent change that they done to the graphics, this game is actually quite. I mean, honestly, graphically speaking, you know, it's a good-looking game. It's not doesn't have to be graphic demanding though. However, I did make it a little bit graphic demanding now. I mean, in order to be graphic demanding, right, it needs to use the graphics, right? And now I actually made the game use the graphics. Yeah, finally, did you see that for a split second? 100% GPU load. Yeah, that's pretty high usage there. And super sharp. Beautiful. And the temperatures are also getting a little bit toasty, but that's fine. As I mentioned before, this thing loves to run warm. I know what kind of voodoo magic they done to this chip to make it run warm and to run this good and not to burn itself down. Although I'm also kind of needlessly surprised because modern chips, modern processors love to get warm and love to run warm. They don't mind the heat. So if that counts for PC, probably counts for mobile. After all, mobile is exposed to a lot more heat than PC, that's for sure. Well, the FPS is, you know, again, have to keep in mind what resolution this is running in. I would say that's decent FPS. Would be much better though if it had Vulkan. Pretty much the only reason why it's not there yet is Vulkan. But overall, you know, we're nearing the end of the video. That was the custom configuration file. I just wanted to show you that, you know, the improvements have been made. However, also it seems like issues have also been made, which is, I guess, a natural part of making a game. However, I believe that the game is in good hands, and with time, I think the game will just get better and better. I mean, I have to give them credit. They actually managed to get OpenGL to run good. Like, I am not a big OpenGL fan. I said that long time ago. Everything should be in Vulkan nowadays because it's just a better API, but man, I give them credit when they deserve credit. They made OpenGL run good. Now, can you imagine how good Vulkan would run? Yeah, I think the game is on the right path. Again, I give them time. I don't want them to rush. You know, giving feedback is good, but at the same time, we also have to have patience. I almost lost patience. I'll be the first one to admit I almost lost patience. But this update, the whole changes that they've done, the overall performance changes that I see, that I experienced, kind of told me that waiting is actually going to pay off. And again, tell me in the comments down below if you have any performance related issues with the game. I will write them down, and when I do the survey or when I go and give the feedback, I will mention all the problems. Because again, as a content creator, I feel like it's my duty to help the community and obviously to help the game in any way, shape, or form I can. After all, I just want everyone to have an enjoyable experience with the game, and honestly, this game is good. Developers are good. It would be a waste not to help out in any way, shape, or form. And again, as a content creator, I feel like that's one of my duties. But with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you would like to support me, feel free to like and subscribe. And with that being said, stay safe. As always, I'll see you next time.